Hey everybody, it's Ricky from All Sorts of Words, and today I'm going to be doing a little punching up, so to speak. 200,000 plus subscriber channel Snarky J just released a video called Self Inserts Are Killing Your Favorite Characters, and I have some thoughts. Now, before we bust up this party, and goddamn it, we are going to bust it up, I need to make one thing positively salient. Not a single one of my points today are an attack on Snarky J, her profession, her gender, her channel, her looks, her education, or her personal life. I will only be addressing the arguments and ideas she spoke of in her video. Her video is a lot like that scene from My Cousin Vinny about the playing card.
Building a case is like building a house. Each piece of evidence is just another building block. He wants to make a brick bunker of a building. He wants to use serious, solid-looking bricks like these. He's gonna show you the bricks. He'll show you they got straight sides. He'll show you how they got the right shape so that they appear to have everything a brick should have. But there's one thing he's not gonna show you. When you look at the bricks at the right angle, they're as thin as this playing card.
Now, I can't blame her for a lot of her ideas because a Google search on self-inserts will give you the same information she's espousing. But being that her channel is so big, she's effectively taken on the role of a spokesperson for this topic, so I'll treat her like a spokesperson. In her video, Snarky J is trying to talk about a problem she and others see in modern media called self-insert characters, something she defines as, well, I'll let her tell you.
When we talk about the things ruining our favorite franchises and we take to the internet to about characters that we don't like, one of the phrases that we throw around quite frequently in Hollywood is the self-insert. A self-insert is essentially when a writer projects their politics, their personality, their personal viewpoint, their sexuality, their personal struggles, or any number of things directly onto a character. So the character becomes less of a character in and of themselves within the piece of content, and instead turns into an almost too direct representation of the writer themselves.
What she's saying is that modern storytelling seems to push the political, spiritual, and the personal agendas of its writers onto their oh so super smart audience, and she's onto you, buddy. But here's the problem. From a literary position, self-insert is a very real thing, but the common vernacular and even Google has run with it in a, let's say, unhealthy way. Self-insert writing, real and true self-insert writing, is when a writer quite literally puts themselves into the story. The most famous example of self-insert writing came from the 14th century by a man named Dante Alighieri. Dante was oh so mad at the church with a capital C, he wrote himself on a tour of the afterlife where he described what hell looked like from his perspective and called his work Dante's Inferno. Or at the end of the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, spoilers for a nearly 2 decades old fantasy series, Stephen King himself is in the story talking to his main character. Even unknown authors get in on the fun. Like how in the novel The Coldest Winter Ever, the author Sister Souljah, the only female member of the band Public Enemy by the way, meets up with the titular character Winter, and man, is Winter mean to her. Winter, makes fun of her weight a whole bunch, and how, Sister Souljah doesn't deserve the men she gets. It's wild. But what Snarky J's describing, and what a lot of other nerds on the internet are decrying as self-insert writing,
when a writer projects their politics, their personality, their personal viewpoint, their sexuality, their personal struggles, or any number of things directly onto a character.
That's literally just writing. It is spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and literarily impossible to write outside of your own perspective. Even if you're writing a character with a voice so entirely different from your own, and you've put a lot of work into the craft of writing, that voice still has its roots in your own viewpoint. I can't write from the authentic perspective of a 15-year-old girl because I'm not one and I've never been one. All I can do is write my level best approximation of one. And I did. Link in the description. Going back to Stephen King for a moment, the man writes almost exclusively about the state of Maine, where he was raised and resides to this day. Does that mean each and every one of his books set in Maine is self-insert? What about a British academic who wanted to use his love of language and history to create a common myth for his own European heritage? Would that mean that The Lord of the Rings is self-insert? Henry Melville spent 5 years at sea learning everything he could about the whaling industry before penning one of the most famous American novels of all time. Does that mean Moby Dick is self-insert? My God, am I self-insert?
But Ricky, if self-insert isn't what Snarky J and Google says it is, why are so many people crying about it on the internet?
Because the phrase self-insert is being used as a way to quickly and concisely deride a work of fiction that isn't reflective of the whiner's personal worldview. The She-Hulk television show has a female lead with some pretty strong views on modern femininity. Well, that's self-insert if I've ever heard of one. But take a personal, religiously inspired retelling of the Christian myth as fantasy, and that's so different. But you know what? All of this didn't really bother me that much. Who cares if most people apply the term self-insert inappropriately because they really just want to rope you into another lecture about masculinity and modern media or whatever.
And I'm going to finish with one more example. James Gunn's Superman is set to release at the time of this video's recording like a month from now, less than a month from now. And of course, we have Krypto.
Oh, no, she didn't. In the same video, she then takes her argument to its unnatural conclusion by trying to make the claim that Krypto the Superdog in the new Superman movie is somehow a self-insert because James Gunn got a dog while writing the script.
He, while in the midst of writing this movie, adopts this misbehaving, formerly abused dog. He adopts this dog and the dog is biting his ankles while he's trying to write this movie, to the point that he has to sit on his counter to avoid being attacked by this dog. And so he decides that this is what he's gonna base Superman's dog on.
And that's where I got crispy. Time to get nerdy, y'all. Snarky J says that the inclusion of Krypto is somehow an indication of James Gunn self-inserting into the Superman movie. She tries to make the argument that Krypto's naughty behavior is another weight on the scale of her self-insert argument, saying that Gunn's experience with his shelter dog is coloring how he's representing our little fluffy boy. But hey, she just wants to make sure he's like he is in the comic books. Snarky J, hi, thanks for stopping by. But you've got to miss me with that bullshit. If you're looking for comic book accuracy, girl, you can't get any more accurate than Krypto's behavior in the Superman trailers. Going all the way back to Adventure Comics 210 in 1955, ooh, the glare though. Krypto was already causing Superman problems with his hijinks. Not even in the first issue, but right there in the damn cover. His very first image to the world was of him acting like a damn dog and getting into it.
Oh no! Krypto thinks I'm playing a game with him. He's fetching back the safe I just left at Town Hall.
The whole self-insert thing is just an excuse for people to diminish work they don't like by making it seem somehow lesser than other purer works of fiction that they just so happen to give a pass. Funny how all the work that gets a pass, though, seems to align with that individual politically or personally. When, in reality, by using Jay's own definition of self-insert,
A self-insert is essentially when a writer projects their politics, their personality, their personal viewpoint, their sexuality, their personal struggles, or any number of things directly onto a character.
all writing in the history of ever is self-insert if you look hard enough. Hell, if you truly believe that the Bible is the word of God, then because it's about him and his opinions on the world, isn't it really just more self-insert? Now, do I think Snarky J is intellectually dishonest or vehemently against the new Superman movie? No, I don't think so. I think she's looking for patterns that aren't there because it sounds like she really likes dogs in general, Krypto in particular, and doesn't want to see him fall victim to what she thinks might be indicators of bad writing. But here's where self-insert criticisms are detracting from the discussion we should be having. Sequels legacy characters, and continuity are the real enemies of good character writing. For the first time in human history, we have in-continuity characters by the thousands being written by people who didn't invent them. Sure, there are adaptations and abridged versions of things like The Count of Monte Cristo, like that one Wishbone episode.
Dumont. He just doesn't like to see anybody happy. You know, folks like that can make nice people turn mean. That's what happens to Edmond Dantes, the hero of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. He's the same guy who brought you The Three Musketeers.
And we have characters like Hercules who have been told 1,000 different times. But that's nothing like we have today for characters like Spider-Man and Superman who tell one consistent story and get new writing teams every month to carry the torch. Like I said, people can't truly write outside of their own perspectives. So then obviously there's going to be a lot of personality and style bleed through when someone takes over for a legacy character like Batman or Captain America. But that's just writing, baby! It can't be helped. Bad writing in comic movies is primarily a consequence of this weird thing we all love called comic books and the continuity it's shackled itself to. If you really wanted to have Batman read as authentic to his character, you'd need Jeff Bezos to write it after taking a DeLorean back in time to ice his parents. Outside of that, writers are just trying their hardest. What self-insert decriers are really mad at, what truly makes their blood boil, is the subconscious realization that the characters they love sound different over time and from writer to writer because they, the audience, is growing older, and the comics they're still into are struggling to answer one big question. Should writers make the characters sound like how they were originally intended, like, for children of a different era? Or should writers try and keep pace with a rapidly aging demographic who struggles to let go of the past? Really, the problem is fans aging out of their fandom fishbowls while trying to ignore their own growing pains. In Superman's case, you'd have to be at least 97 years old to have been there for his inception. For everyone younger than that, you're not the true OG fan of the character you think you are. You're the 50th person down the line of an almost century-old human centipede, eating the regurgitated children's stories of a remake. Self-inserts, even if they did exist as Snarky J thinks they do, are just the latest retelling of a character that wasn't made for you. And the sooner you realize that everything you love in superhero comic books is just essentially a remix, the better you'll feel. Love you, bye.